What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here doing a technical analysis on ticker symbol NVTA for Invitae Corp. Now, that's a tough one to say. On the left-hand side, we're looking at the daily perspective, right-hand side, 30-minute intraday time frame. Let's start out by mapping out obvious areas of support and resistance from this daily time frame chart. Certainly, this pivot high strikes me as important. This sort of area of lows you can see touch here certainly held it before this little bounce, which is now fading, which we'll talk about in a second. And then the last thing I want to make to your attention is, of course, this resistance trend line, which would look something like that. You can see that our anchor is clearly up here, touch 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this most recent earnings gap up. So speaking of earnings gaps up, let's focus in on that and talk about what is the potential play here on this name. So certainly the gap fill is in play down here towards 28.61, and to get into that, we would have to violate today's low at 29.31. If we flip our attention over to that 30-minute time frame chart now, what you'll notice is a pretty weak close, right? We saw a pretty aggressive sell in the morning, and then we just simply consolidated into a bear flag here. The anticipated reaction or play out of this would be a breakdown further, which would almost align with a gap fill here to 28.61. If we were to go any lower, it's not really that daily pivot low that we talked about. If we just scrunch this up a bit, you can clearly see this shelf in here, grabbing this tool, that there's an area of support right around 27.83 that should be on your radar if we fill the gap and continue lower. But what do we know about gap fills after earnings? It should act as an area of support. Basically, again, anyone who was long from here and experienced the gap up and held their shares, they're looking to hold on to that as an area of support for something like that. So that's a potential setup, right? You fill the gap, you see and find support there, look for the reversal, in which case you obviously have to battle back up through this area here at 29.31 simply because of the support that was here. Then after that, I would argue there is an area of resistance here at 29.87. So a couple of overhead levels to pay attention to after that. If it really gets going, maybe 30.64 is the anticipated move beyond that, but that's asking for a lot after a pretty weak close on today's action. The last thing I'll sort of leave you off with is a Fibonacci analysis. If we just go from the high here down to the low to check out what was going on with this little dead cat into the end of the day. Again, we know it closed weak simply because it could not even recapture this 38.2, which conveniently, we drew in there as resistance basically at this 29.87 mark. So I'd really watch for anything bearish to develop if it holds underneath 30. Again, looking for that gap to fill. If it starts to get above 30, then, maybe it doesn't fill the gap and it comes back up, but the line in the sand has to be here at 30.64. If it can't recapture, I would imagine the gap fills eventually. So if you did enjoy today's video, if you learned anything new about chart analysis, let me know down below in the comments section or by simply leaving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our main channel is linked down below in the description, and all of that being said, we wish you a green trading week.